Folks, something absolutely insane is starting in Pittsburgh today as we speak. And I know that a lot of people don't even watch the news, so there's people in Pittsburgh right now that have no idea that this is starting today. Now, we've been talking about this, this current wave of crime, this rise in violent crimes. We've been talking about that a lot on this channel lately. As you all know, I talked about it the other day. They've even deployed the National Guard in New York City to guard the subways. And yeah, I think that's an overreach. That's a conversation we already had. But starting today in Pittsburgh, police are no longer going to be responding to calls about theft. So if you own a small business and people run in and start stealing your stuff, the police aren't going to show up no matter how many times you call them. They're no longer going to respond to calls about harassment. So if you have an ex that's been harassing and stalking you and you call the police are no longer going to show up. The police are no longer going to show up to petty crimes. They're no longer going to show up to random domestic disputes, and they're no longer going to show up to burglaries. So if you have someone that robbed or broke into your home, chances are police are no longer going to respond to those calls. And between certain hours in the middle of the night, I believe it's between 3 and 7 a.m., police are no longer going to be responding to any calls at all. From the hours of I believe it's 3 to 7 a.m., don't quote me, they're going to be MIA. Basically, you are SOL. They're not going to be at the police station. They're not going to be making the rounds. They're not going to be out there in the squad cars. No, there's going to be no police on duty in peak crime hours and the wee hours of the morning. So it doesn't matter what happens to you, they're not coming. And even in the hours in which the police will be working, they're not going to be responding to the majority of calls they're getting. It is absolutely insane. I know that some of you all are watching this and you probably don't even believe me because it sounds so crazy. So let's go ahead and roll this this clip from the local news, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
What was the big takeaway today?
Yeah, Susan, residents of the city will see a major change in the way police respond. They will no longer respond to calls that aren't considered in-progress emergency. That means calls like criminal mischief, theft, harassment, and most burglary alarms will all be handled by an enhanced telephone reporting unit. That means residents will file a police report over the phone. Officers will not respond unless it's an emergency. Also, between the hours of 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., there will be no officers at any of the 6 stations throughout the city. Call boxes that link directly to 911 have been installed for people to use in case of an emergency. And during the overnight shift, there will be as few as 20 officers to cover the entire city. The chief said today the data supports that.
Yes, it's enough to cover the entire city in those hours when we have 8% of the time people are calling. I'm confident in the decisions that we make that it impacts this bureau and the city in a much better way than we have in the past.
Now, the chief also acknowledging today that some of these changes are due to staffing shortages. He's down to 740 officers, well below the 850 they would like to have. Now, coming up new at 5, residents, city council, and the police union all weighing in on these big changes that begin Monday. Live in the studio.
And there it is, folks. And people will look at you crazy when you tell them that things like this are going to happen. And then when it happens, it's already too late. And I've been telling you all for a long time now that this is all part of the plan. They want chaos, so you have to look to them for answers. They cause the problem, and then they bring you the solution. And right now, Pittsburgh, it's like the purge, basically. Between the hours of 3 and 7 a.m., you do whatever you want. The cops aren't coming. It doesn't matter what you're doing. So if you live in this area, if you have the money, get the hell out. And if not, I hope that you are really ready to defend yourself. Because what this is doing is this is obviously sending a message to anyone out there that wants to do anything bad and anything wrong. Hey, you want to break into someone's home? The police aren't coming. It doesn't matter what hour of the day it is, but if it's between 3 and 7, there's no police even on duty. So you can wreak havoc in the streets. You can go on a freaking spree of just wiping people out. Cops aren't going to show up. You could rob these businesses. You can do that. This is like a bat signal. It's a reverse bat signal. A signal in the air saying, hey, all of you wicked and evil people, all of you criminals, come to Pittsburgh. Do whatever the hell you want between the hours of 3 and 7 a.m. And basically, you can do it whatever you want at any other time as well, you know, as long as you follow certain guidelines. It's absolutely insane, folks. But no matter how much we warn people that stuff like this is going to happen, we're all considered conspiracy theorists. I'm sick and tired of it, folks. I am so sick and tired of it. Everything people have warned you about, it's here. It's happening now. It's been unfolding for the last few years. If you haven't woken up already, it's about time to wake up, folks. If this isn't a wake-up call, I don't know what is. Because if they'll do it in a big city like Pittsburgh, what makes you think they won't do it in a small town like yours? What makes you think that they won't do it in whatever city that you live in across America? And when ish hits the fan and things get crazy, people are going to ask for help, and that's when they'll roll in the National Guard and the military to patrol the streets. And before you know it, we're living in this militarized state where we have to go through military checkpoints, and there's just this big brother watching over us 24/7, which it already is, but in a way where it's hard to ignore. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're being surveyed, we're being watched 24/7 by the powers that be, we're being watched by our government, but when you have military in the streets, basically watching your every move, checking you in and out of stores and what have you, that's the reality that we're heading to. And first, what's going to happen is stuff like what you see in Pittsburgh. They're making it to where people are going to beg. You're going to beg for the military to come in at this point when you have God knows what is about to unfold in Pittsburgh. Like I said, it's going to be the purge, basically. I don't know if you've all seen the Purge movies. If you haven't, maybe you should check them out because we're getting closer and closer to that. And as crazy as that sounds, unfortunately, that's the reality that we're living in. And that's what people have to grasp. People need to grasp that we're living in an absolutely insane world. Listen, I understand. None of this stuff makes sense. None of this stuff sounds real. It all seems fake. But it's not, folks. Sadly, it's not. So I'm praying for the people of Pittsburgh. I'm really interested to see how this turns out. I wonder what cities are next. For now, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're down there, if you're feeling generous, you can donate to the channel via CashApp or via Super Thanks, or you can help the channel for free by liking and subscribing. But with that being said, I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.